So let me just explain a little bit about the structure of this town hall meeting. We hear a short intro by myself. I will also introduce myself in a second. And then we have different speakers from all over the world, basically, who will talk about the challenges of running their organization in a decentralized manner. And we'll have 5-minute presentations each, and after that we will open the floor for questions. So please feel invited, ask your question, make your comments. This is really about getting into a conversation rather than an expert meeting, because I believe when it comes to decentralized governance, none of us is an expert. It seems like a new skill that we need to learn. And probably there's also a lot that we need to unlearn in order to really build some sort of collective leadership, because probably was nothing we got trained with, and nothing that's so super obvious to engage in collective decision-making processes, to collaborate among continents and countries, to take financial decisions together, possibly over Zoom or co-budget or other tools. And this is something that I feel is some kind of pioneering work. And there are probably no experts among us, but I think there are really interesting stories here in the room. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Just a word about myself. My name is Ela Kagel. I'm based in Berlin. I'm co-founder of Supermarkt. Supermarkt is an independent, self-run community hub. We work with platform co-ops since 4 to 5 years. And before that, we have been researching and doing work in the cooperative economy. We organize workshops and conferences, we do consultancy work, and we help platform co-ops to grow. I'm also collaborating with the distributed governance network called DGAF, and that's a bunch of more technically oriented people that are engaged in DAOs and decentralized autonomous organizations and other forms. So for me, it's really interesting also to look at at this technical or blockchain perspective when talking about decentralized governance. But let's not make it a tech talk. Let's really make it a conversation about shared experiences of collective leadership, collaborative decision-making, and working across continents. And it's my super big pleasure to finally meet some people in person. And I quickly want to introduce Javi Creus from Barcelona. He's from Salus Co-op and will give us a presentation soon. I just make a round for everyone. We have Francesca Martinelli and Chiara Chiappa from Doc Servizi in Italy. They are an artist cooperative, and I'm really happy to finally meet you, because we've been in touch only by social media. Ali Ercan Özgur. Where is Ali? He probably will show up later. He's from Turkey, and he is organizing the needs map. Novita Puspasari, Innovation Hub. And which country again? Because
Indonesia.
From Indonesia. Very, very happy you could be here. Thanks. Mike Cook from Stocksy United is here. Richard Jensen, who is a new CEO from Resonate Music Collective, and super happy you could make it.
Hello.
And curious to hear about your work with Resonate. And Simon Peck from the Gustafsson School of Business. I think that's everyone. So, welcome. Let's walk through all your presentations, 5 minutes each. If I'll make that gesture, it means wrapping up. Please focus on the most important things, because we want to hear from everyone in the room after the presentations.
Well, hello, my name is Javi Creus. I come from Barcelona. With some other citizens, we've been for 3 years building Salus Co-op. Salus Co-op is a citizen data cooperative for health research. No? And I believe this is a message I want to share with you, that data is the new oil, of the new soil for a best future. Whatever we do with data can determine very much where are we heading. No? So what we should know is our data cures, no? Our data, be it genetical or clinical or socioeconomical, especially lifestyle in our elderly and chronic disease societies. Our data is yours, in Europe at least, with GPDR. There's a revolution in genetics, and data for health research is not easily accessible. That means that if you want to do health research, you have to invest lots of money, time, relationships to get to it. And when you get to it, you demand a high return. That's why we don't have new antibiotics, 7 euros, you cure something, and all research is done on chronic diseases and so on. Okay, so what we thought is what would happen if we citizens, we could pull our data together from mobiles, lifestyle, how much you work, how much you sleep, what do you eat, how much social relationships you have, from Fitbits and so on, from public health services, your private insurance. We pull it together and we decide together upon which terms we want to share it for research. And we create data abundance in the places of other people we want to do research on our health. So the way we look at things is we are at the end of the phase of data centralization by corporations and states, and we are visioning a new scenario made of a new architecture, a new technological architecture made of personal repositories, like Tim Berners-Lee is working on Solid. That means that your data is not gathered on Twitter or Facebook or the Social Security. You have your own where you put your data, and that should be accompanied by new social institutions that help us govern collectively our data for common good, such as data cooperatives ourselves or data trust, and we need a new legal framework, GPDR, the blockchain as trust among us without intermediaries, or the data license. I'm going to show you that last. And so what we did, we crowd-designed with the people we put up on the internet. We were showing people scenarios on people demanding your data, would you share it or not? And we said, who's requesting your data? Is it a public university or a pharmaceutical industry? Which data is requested? Are they asking for how much you walk or for genetical data? What is the research conducted for? Is it a chronic disease or is it a static disease? And how results will be shared? Will researchers keep them for themselves or they will share openly? And 8,000 responses. This is 3M, it's still online, so if you want to do the exercise yourself of going through scenarios and thinking in which terms would you share your data or not, you can still play with this. It's in Spanish, but it's in English as well. And here it says, imagine a university asks for your online activity to do research on rare illnesses, and results will be shared openly. Would you donate or wouldn't you donate your data? And what we found out is that 8,000 responses later, 87% of the people which share their data with these 5 conditions, and we package that in a license we call the Salus Common Good Data License for Health Research. And those 5 conditions upon most of us are willing to share their data for research is your data will only be used for research on health, chronic and rare diseases, not aesthetical, not things that are not real illnesses. Second, data will be used by non-commercial entities. Data, and that's the most important driver. What we learned from our research, from these 8,000 responses, is that's the main driver. We are willing to share our data if results of the research are shared openly at no cost for anyone. Fourth, privacy protection. Your data will be anonymized, so you cannot be identified, re-identified, and you can change your preference at any time. We're actually using this license already in research projects for the European Union, when we gather data from citizens, being noise or being how much we walk and so on. And our contribution to this is, if the cooperative movement has to move along, we need shared licenses as to create this new legal framework by which we can together impose research where we want. That means that if we create as a collective data abundance, no, in the things we're interested in, we are favoring that more researchers with different ideas about how to do research, with different methodologies, can get into research. Health is basically on lifestyle, and very little research is done on those terms. And at this point in time, we've got the license. We are building the blockchain. We don't want to hold data because that would mean centralized and vulnerable databases. So what we keep is the pointer to your data and the contract attached to your data, and we keep that on the blockchain. And when we get a demand for data, we go to and we open all the data and we create a synthetic database for researchers to work on, and we've created the blockchain registry. We're talking with data keepers and users so as to use our license, and we're trying to find funding to create the user app that would allow citizens easily to share their data. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to this session. Of course, I'm really happy to be here, but I'm not here alone. I'm Francesca Martinelli. I'm the director of the Centro Sui Foundation, and together with me today there is also Chiara Chiappa, who is the president of the Centro Sui Foundation, and Demetrio Chiappa, who is the president of Doc Servizi. And now we are going to talk about it. And Doc Servizi and the foundation are both based in Verona, Italy. Context. We know that we are working in a situation where many of us are becoming more and more freelancers, and freelancers are self-entrepreneurs that deals with many difficulties such as economic difficulties, inconstancy, multiple clients, lack of social protection, and the number of freelancers in Europe and the US is growing. In US now is the 36%, in Europe the average is 13%, but in Italy is the 21% because we have a lot of flexibility in our market. In this context, Doc Servizi was created in 1919, almost 30 years ago, to protect and valorize the work of musicians and artists. And today, it's part of a network of 9 societies. Most of them have cooperatives. You can see all the labels that are here. And together, we cover all the cultural and creative industries. There is even one foundation, the Centro Sui Foundation, and one association that connected 280 live clubs and 50 festivals. We are going to close 2019 with 70 million of turnover, all the network. There are today 8,000 branches, 8,000 members, spread all over in Italy in 34 branches, and we just created a new branch in Paris. And together we deal with the difficulties of freelancers, but how can we, all the system can answer to these difficulties? So the mechanism is very simple. Actually, when you are a freelancer or a musician, so you enter in the cooperative and you are hired by the cooperative. So you obtain all the protection of an employee, because in Italy the welfare state is still effective. So if you become an employee, you have more rights than an independent contractor. But at the same time, you keep the autonomy in the management of your business, because of course freelancers are used to work in a very autonomous way. And together, all the freelancers that enter in the cooperative help each other to promote and support their own activities. This is what we call a bossless organization. But the point is, how to organize the governance of a cooperative that is connected with other societies, with members all over Italy, one branch in Paris, and that work in very discontinuous way, and they are used to be autonomous. Of course, the General Assembly is still at the core, because like every cooperative, the General Assembly is the most important democratic moment. But to solve the problem of the representation and collective opinions of our members, we had to create a circular governance. So starting from the General Assembly, of course, with the Assembly define the board, the Executive Committee, but then it's very important the role that each branch has on the territory, because members are used to talk with their branch each day or each month, but they talk continue in very continuity with the cooperative in this way. And the branches collect all the opinions, all the ideas, and give back to the board all the ideas that came from the basis. We can say that is like an informal way to manage the decision making. Of course, to support all these 8,000 members working in a very discontinuous way all over Italy and in Europe, we need a very technological platform. We have an in-house technology that is based on safety, transparency, trust and quality. It has two main purposes. First of all, guarantee the self-management of workers and help them to be more autonomous in their work, supporting also their activities, and connect them with the clients. The philosophy that is behind both the technology and the governance is the one of the cooperative or self-management. We call DOC Servizi as a cooperative platform of self-management. That means that each person is autonomous in the management of the business, but is part of the cooperative, and in this way they protect, all the members protect each others, and in this sense the platform is not at the core of the business, but at the core of the business there are the activities of each member. So the platform is a tool to support the activities of each member. In contrast with the idea of unicorn companies that is now spreading all over the world and that is supporting the idea of individual entrepreneurship and everybody that has to be successful and gain more money than others, we support the idea of collective entrepreneurship. And instead of the unicorn company, we prefer to talk about the Pegasus company. And this is the reason why you find a Pegasus in the brochure, because with this idea I convinced also the cooperative to put a Pegasus on that. And very simple, I'm not taking long, I'm closing it. But, you know, Pegasus is a constellation, and it is like cooperative. In a constellation, you have different stars, and each star is a fundamental node of this network. If you put away only one star, you don't have anymore a constellation, you just have a mass of stars. So, this is our idea. Instead of isolation, individualism, keep the autonomy, but all together, create a new world and new opportunities for those who are dispersed on the market. Thank you.
Okay, so NeedsMap is a cooperative in Turkey. We established like 4 years ago. We were like 7 friends who had ideas about problems of aid coordination in Turkey, humanitarian aid coordination. And there was a huge governance problem, supply and demand side, and social media was the area where lots of people were interacting. Like there is a village call that needs wheelchair. There is a community call from a community center. We need lots of booths for poor children, and also there were lack of coordination mechanism in like government side. So we don't want to be part of the government side. So we wanted to be create an independent digital platform. So we find to be a cooperative as a key platform. And our idea was to map these to neighborhood system. So in Turkey, we have a strong neighborhood relation system. So we said if we can do kind of a map, which is now like that, we call it needsmap.coop. And in here, we are listing them. So the idea was the problem of data of aid who are in need, who wants to support that. So there was kind of a complex mechanism of data governance of these issues. And location was also another problem. So municipalities are allocating funds, NGOs are allocating funds or resources. So we wanted to create kind of a solution. So we discussed with different partners, And so we came up with this map idea. So needs map is a critical point is non-profit. So I'm co-founder. We are now 20 co-founders in the system. So we don't get shares. So it's a non-profit cooperative. Whatever it gets money, it has a monetization system. It gets money. We replicate these maps for different communities. So you can have needsmap.coop/autism foundation. So you can have, as a company, you can have your own map specified for you. So we charge funding. So we get money throughout these, but the money we keep inside. So workers are part of it. I'm not a worker. I'm just in the board. But we have workers, we have volunteers. So we created kind of a stakeholder-based system in our structure. So far, in the last 3.5 years, we created around 700,000 transactions in the system. We got more than 1 million map data entries. So think of Turkey, which has digital literacy is not so high. Rural areas to other areas. So we enable people to enter from 81 cities to a complicated data system. But we saw that if you provide an open source, if you provide people to get into it. So in that system now we have more than 70,000 users in the system, like 350 civil society organizations. We have student volunteer clubs at 50 universities. And monthly we are getting more than 60 entries of needs. So this is our kind of governance mechanism we try to manage. So as a smart city program, it's also used by some municipalities in Turkey and some public institutions, platform, local agents, schools. So this is our governance structure. We try to have our own circles and different interaction structures that we try to learn and structure. But just going back here, like what we want to do is, and also trying to learn, discussing since from last year from Hong Kong, is to create kind of a crowd decision-making process, including 70,000 beneficiaries who are sometimes supporters, who are also beneficiaries of needs. So we try to create a governance decision-making ecosystem. So this is our challenge. This is what we try to include. So we try to be as much as transparent with the whole system. We publish all our accountings in the system. All single money transaction we publish. It's all accessible in our system. And it comes from a local culture in Turkey. We have since like hundreds of years called İmece. İmece is like collective voluntary solution for local problems. So we call it online İmece. Digital İmece is kind of a word from Persian, Arabic, Turkish mixture. But we want to grow it as a program. And we recently developed a financial technology solution to the system. Logistic was a big problem. So governance of logistics was a big problem. So we wanted to solve this through a financial system that you will be able to solve the problem at the local level. You see if there is a problem here, you will be able to buy from a local shop. So we will be empowering, instead of buying from New York to sending it to Ghana or giving it to a INGO, what we are trying is creating peer-to-peer giving system, which is equal, not hierarchical, which is not complicated. So we try to disrupt as a system for humanitarian corruption ecosystem. So our standpoint and our main cause to try to make it global is to disrupt the humanitarian ecosystem and creating this peer-to-peer. Because once you donate kind of an INGO to help for Ghana or somewhere else, like if you donate like $100 through the bureaucracy and all the system, $10 is going. But in our system, what we want to do is let's make it $90 and disrupt the system, like instead of like other areas. So this is our up and running system so far, and hope we will grow soon. And it's open to all discussions. We want to replicate in other countries and open all challenges, critics, and let's collaborate together and grow monopolies. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Novita, and I'm here representing the ICCI, Indonesian Consortium for Cooperative Innovation, as well as Cooperative Innovation Hub in Indonesia. So it's Indonesia. It's 25 hours flying from here, so I'm a bit jet lagged now. I'm trying to be awake right now. Okay.
Novita, maybe you need an extra round.
Yeah, I'm in Indonesia. Okay, so I'm going to talk about distributed governance. So still because we are still a beginner in technology, we like to identify ourselves, the consortium, the ICCI, as an ecosystem enabler. So we try to build the ecosystem. Okay, so this is Indonesia. Anyone? Have you ever been to one of our islands? Bali, maybe? Yeah, for sure, Bali. Okay, so we have 17,000 something islands in Indonesia. We have a lot of islands. We have 5 main islands in Indonesia, and we have 100,052 something cooperatives, but I don't trust the government since the data cannot be traced. Actually, we don't have the exact data, so I think that maybe half of the data, maybe half of it, the ministry only they boost it. And yeah, so in Indonesia, 90% of the cooperatives are financial cooperative, are saving and loan cooperatives, and the others are production and also consumer cooperative. So we joined familiar with worker co-ops model until 2017, and we joined familiar with platform co-op model. So this is a new thing for us, and as the consortium, we try to build like the innovation to introduce this new model of co-op in Indonesia. Since 90% of the cooperative in Indonesia are saving and loan, and they are the bad ones, the bad financial ones. They like charge people with very high interest, and they don't run the co-ops in co-ops way. So we want to innovate the cooperative in Indonesia. So we have like 3 layers of governance here. So we have the consortium, Indonesian Consortium for Cooperative Innovation in national level. Then we try also to build cooperative innovation hub in each regions. We work together with the university for the innovation hub, and also in local level we have incubators for new models. In Indonesia we have 4 layers of government: the central one, the province one, the region one, and the village one. So it's a bit tricky. And the national one here, the consortium tried to gather all the resources, and then the innovation hub tried to organizing the resources. So the innovation hub, for example, they try to organize, orchestrate who did what. For example, who do research, who do funding, and that the incubators only focus on developing the business model. So we have our own job here. So this is what we have done during these 2 years. We have 4 innovation hub in 2 islands in Indonesia. We have one in Central Java, one in East Java, one in Jakarta, and the other in the other island, the innovation hub. So it's working together with the university. And we also have 2 incubators in Central Java and in Sumatra. And these local incubators, they incubate about 13 or 14 incubators, and these incubators actually because of the diversity of Indonesia, and also because we have like a very the facilities is not too supportive. So for example, if we want to go to the other island, it takes like maybe 10 hours by plane. So it's a bit complicated. Then we try to only replicate the model to the other island. And okay, so we have one case study. It's Beca. It's basically this is one of our incubator. It is a worker cooperative. It's a technology-based worker cooperative in Indonesia. So we try to differentiate the term between the worker cooperative with technology-based worker cooperative and platform cooperative. So technology-based worker cooperative, the members are the workers and the founders, but we think that the platform cooperative, the members are all the stakeholders. So it's based on multi-stakeholders cooperative perspective. So Beca is one of our incubator, and it is a worker cooperative using digital platform. We develop it in Central Java. But when we present this technology, this project to another province, then in East Java, then one of the biggest cooperative in East Java wants to collaborate with us. Then Beca will be converted to platform cooperative, since the cooperative that we work together in East Java has like thousands of members. So the members also the users. Okay, and in applying which models or methods used in different regions, actually we always depends on the characteristic of the place. I think that's it from Indonesia. Thank you very much.
So Stocksy, we started off, we're somewhat of a, I won't say, I guess in a sense we're hybrid, because we have a normal sort of corporate structure where we've got a board of advisors that have members elected from the rest of the membership base, as well as some spots kept open for outside advisors and founders to speak to us and give us advice on strategy. And we have a resolution process that we've had since inception that allows members to have a voice. All members only have one vote, but we had to have a way to have them vote. And it was before my time at Stocksy, but they kind of did it this sort of normal way that lots of local co-ops do, where we'd hold an AGM and gather everybody in on Zoom or whatnot and have a big discussion, and there'd be a big pile of resolutions that people had to talk through and nobody had time to read. And we've got members, like at the time it was probably only about 700 or 800 members, but we had members in over 65 countries. Many of them English is their second language, so really the voting that we were getting, we could tell was just by virtue of the numbers, but also you just knew that you're not getting everybody participating because time zones and everything else. Somebody in Indonesia, for instance, would be hard pressed necessarily to be getting up early in the morning to watch our AGM. So we sat down, the CEO at the time and I was there as VP Ops at the time. We sat down to try to solve this problem and came up with this. And don't worry, I'm not going to walk through every single box on it. But we also had, we put a resolution vote out and we wouldn't hit quorum, so we'd have to go back to the members and say, oh shit, we've got to extend the voting for another week because we didn't hit quorum, et cetera, et cetera. So there's also not enough discussion going on, as I mentioned before. So I will go through this very quickly, so don't worry, us being watched for time. We basically created a system online that allows our members to submit what we call an idea for discussion. Because we had resolutions coming in that were, and I'm not doing this to make fun of any contributors, because they just want the best for the co-op, but they would say, get #1 in Google. or they'd bundle together like 5 things into one resolution that didn't really make sense when you thought about it. So we decided, it's actually adding a layer to this in a normal resolution process, but we any member can submit an idea for discussion. It does not go by me. It does not go by any management or anything in the co-op. It goes directly into our system, and the system automatically posts it in our forum saying an idea for discussion has been submitted. An email goes out to all members, and they can start voting on it. And the voting isn't to pass it; it's to determine, does this merit being advanced to the board. And the powerful part of this, it's really fairly simple, is the forum discussion, because that allows them all to talk about it and debate and back and forth and discuss what should be, whether it has merit or doesn't have merit. And then the cool thing is the system just tracks voting. And at this stage, we have 3 classes of members. Class C is all our artists across the world. And when we hit 10% of Class C have voted, the system just automatically spits out an email to all the members and posts in the forum saying quorum has been reached and you have 7 days left to vote. We could technically close the voting right then because we've hit quorum, but we want to make sure everybody has a chance to participate and talk. And we experimented there. We had 4 days initially, and then we got smacked around by our members because a lot of them are out doing photo shoots and whatnot, and they wanted to have time to see it properly. Oh man, I'm running out of time. I'll be quick. So if it passes, if it fails, the system just automatically says the membership did not advance this. If it gets advanced, it goes to the board. What's not shown up here is we have a resolution committee that then takes all the comments and everything in the forum, and their task is to make sure the question that gets put in front of them. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Goes to the board. Board decides, should this just be done? Because the board has the ability to just say, this doesn't need to go to resolution. It's just a great idea. We should do it. The board can kill it. We've had some ideas come in where there are conflicts of interest and things that just outright should not be done, and so the board will speak to that if they do kill it, or they advance it to a formal resolution vote. And if it goes to a formal resolution vote, the resolution committee crafts the question, and they're not tasked with deciding whether it's a good question or a bad question. It's effectively, is this in a state where the members can vote on a clear yes or no vote? And when that's done, it goes back into the system in a very similar manner to the idea for discussion, gets posted in the forums, email gets sent out, and voting happens. In this case, we have all 3 classes have to vote. We have to have 1 member from Class B, which is our employees, 1 member from Class A, which are founders and advisors, and then 10% of Class C. And again, if it passes, then bam, it's been passed, and we now have to deal with it. And there's no meddling around by executives or anything in between. It allows the members to speak directly to us about something that should be done. Now, when a resolution passes, we still have to figure out how to get it done and whatnot. That's a different story. But sorry, I've gone 1 minute over. Apologies.
That's fine. It's super cool to see the process.
It's a little lame to be sort of hitting everybody with that, but that's and frankly, it's relatively simple. And I'll just finish with this. Really, the power in this is committing to do it. That's the key, because you can put whatever technology you want in, but if you don't abide by what you put in place, then, and I know that's, everybody will nod their heads and say, yeah, of course, but that truly is where a lot of the work comes, is actually being in the forum discussion. Because when the members say, hey, what about this? Well, management has to get in sometimes and weigh in on it, and that's where the real hard work comes from. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks so much.
This is my device. I didn't.
Old school.
I want to honor a practice that I've been observing in North America for picking up the last couple of years, which is to honor the people that occupy this land, both human and non-human beings, from which all of the wealth has emanated. I think this. So I just want to take a moment in both in gratitude, and the connection is one that comes with horror and other kinds of response, but both as historical people, but also people that are present, conversations that occurred in the past and things that occurred in the past and that occurred presently. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that on this land, which is named after, of course, it's a kind of bastardized, bowdlerized version of, I'm sure, how they describe themselves. I'm speaking of Manhattan. This kind of context, I think, is important, given that if we look at what it is our services are, and I want to say service, we could say product or service, but I think it's important that we bring historical and also a kind of spatial context, given that we are on a sphere, we're on a world. We may have culture that was planar or that started locally and then expanded. We may have tools. There's been a lot of, I think part of what brings us to this conference has to do with certain ethical principles. To some, this is new, but things like music and cooperation are, of course, as old as what we identify the qualities of being human. And so if our product or service, such as ours, is music, we haven't invented music. Music is a practice. It's a cultural tradition. For some people, music is as vital as breathing or drinking water. Not everybody. People may have their different niches that are so important, but for some people, music is that essential quality. And I have to say, out of my life for about 40 years now, the distributed governance that has organized my life has been musical. So when we look at, and I'll say I'm new to the position of the executive of Resonate. If you want to find us online, we are Resonate, the word resonate.is. It's probably in the program if it's not on the screen. But we were founded a couple of years ago, I think in 2015. Peter Harris, our founder, who's still with the organization, but started a Kickstarter, wanted to look at fair trade streaming. And I started some conversations with Peter around decentralized technology. At that time, it was a blockchain solution about 2 years ago. Those conversations intersecting with my trajectory through music eventually led so that now I, for the last few months, have been the executive of this co-op. And so when I speak personally, I'm speaking what I'm bringing to something that was already there. And as you mentioned, we aren't experts, so I'm just giving you sort of the description of where Resonate is at and how I'm hoping to learn in the next hour or to engage with different people at different processes. So we've been around for a while. We've got 7,000 artists that we work with. We're founded in Ireland. Many of our people are in Berlin and Brussels and Lyon, and I'm out in Seattle. I'll back up and just say that governance through music, the people that have come to music, it's because of a human capacity rooted in ancient things. And so as what we are, the three things that I brought to my work in what we're doing now is first, stabilization, because we were disrupted by our blockchain partners in 2018. Second, humanization, which is to focus on making things work for artists, and then harmonization. If we can since we can pay double what Spotify pays, and we are non-exclusive, there's no reason not to have artists come to our platform and following cooperative ethos around the world and have a basis for organizing content that connects people in different localities all over the world. And by connecting them to other cooperative projects, if music streaming is paying and self-supporting, that's like the campfire that brings everybody around. And once they're gathered around, we can take them and connect them to other projects. So that's my theory. We are stable. We are effective. We are paying artists. Our deal is non-exclusive. We have a platform that can handle millions of concurrent users that is mostly built. So part of my problem now is working out local modes with meetups and looking for additional partners to build the platform that will work and support artists around the world. I'll stop there. Thank you.
So I'll be equally old school with this little pad here. But so my role is an assistant professor of sustainability at the Gustafson School of Business. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here to be able to share some questions and ideas I've been noodling with and to see what innovative designs that are out there. So I've seen over the last few years a huge interest from business people, but especially from students who are looking for something much more meaningful than a traditional business career or a career at the government. They want to be at the cutting edge of technology, but they also want to feel good about what they do and run in a much more democratic manner. So the question that I've been spending several years thinking about is how democratically run organizations like unions, co-ops, or nonprofits can grow and be successful while at the same time not losing that democratic side, which is one of the main reasons people get into business in the first place. So I've looked at a few tools, like if any of you are familiar with sociocracy or holacracy. But the question that interests me a lot more is when we do start having representative structures, a question that we almost never think about is how do we select those representatives? So I'll put it out to the group. In the boards of directors or any other representative bodies, how are people typically selected? Raise your hand if election is the tool that's most commonly used. Any other tools that are out there? So it seems that...
We work in a social brand company, so it's normally nomination.
Interesting.
And then anyone can be nominated. And after that, you round and you get to a consensus on the name.
Can you repeat the model? Was that sociocracy?
Sociocracy that I was talking about. So imagine that you have a really big group and you have to decide who will be the leader. Yes. Everybody can nominate one person and explain why. And after that, you go through some rounds until you get consensus on the person. And it's not like, not everybody has to agree that one is the best person, but has to agree that the person doesn't have anything to say that the person shouldn't be there.
So it's
nominate yourself?
We can nominate ourselves.
Oh, okay.
So sociocracy and holacracy present one really cool option that's really exciting. The tool that I'm interested in as well in addition to that is what we tend to use in juries in several countries where we randomly select people from within the organization. So it might sound like something that's kind of extreme or radical or even irrational, but has a lot of power to it. And when you think about a traditional worker co-op, which is what I'm most experienced with, you tend to have generally a very apathetic body of members who might attend an AGM. Usually if they're asked to vote on something, they have no idea what they're voting on, nor would they feel comfortable voicing any opinion against it because the agenda has already been set. On the flip side, you tend to have elected representatives that are not descriptively representative of the population. It comes with tons of social and financial costs associated with it, and it doesn't get that broad range of diversity of ideas. So random selection as just one tool can be extremely powerful in a lot of different functions. It can fit with the ethos of social equity, be much more descriptively representative, be more inclusive, and ultimately help generate a lot better ideas in a lot of cases. So that's what I've been interested in at a theoretical level. And just to plant a few seeds about what this might look like in practice, if we take the idea of the board of directors, some really cool co-ops have decided that some of those seats ought to be allocated to randomly selected members, which is a great way of keeping the elected people accountable in some ways. Other people propose that you could have a separate body, for example, that's completely randomly selected, that could have a veto power over what the board of directors decides. Ultimately, the possibilities are endless, but it's giving those decision makers some role and making sure that those decision makers do truly reflect the membership in a way that's not election or career based. Another approach could be if you want to get more genuine information from the bottom of the organization. Not everyone wants to participate in the AGM, for example, or wants to put together a proposal. So political scientists have come up with this really exciting tool called deliberative mini-publics, or sometimes called citizens' juries. You take a randomly selected group of members or a population, you give them a lot of information, a lot of time to actively deliberate about a particular issue, such as inclusion, social justice policy, or strategy, and they can then develop that strategy together, and it can proceed through whatever decision-making process you have. Much more informed opinion of what the body would truly think if they had the time to deliberate. And when it comes to crowd platforms, one other example could be having moderators that are randomly selected. So now crowd governance is really exciting, but the key question becomes, who is the one who's ultimately able to make decisions about what posts or which threads proceed? So all I wanted to do is plant the seed that there is a tool that we commonly don't think about. It can have tons of potential, almost very little real-world application today, but if anyone's interested in discussing this, exploring this, it would be a tremendous pleasure. So I'll leave it at that, and looking forward to discussion.
Now it's about time that we all engage in a broader conversation. And yeah, thank you all so much for your contributions. I think we've heard everything, like from this entire world of distributed governance, decentralized governance. We've heard many motivations for people or organizations to engage in decision-making processes. We've heard challenges and we've heard different assumptions around that. We've heard about things that work and things that probably don't work so well. And what stuck to my mind was basically there are so many different methodologies. We just mentioned democracy or sociocracy as a model, voting and so forth. But in the end, I just would like to come back to what Mike was saying. In the end, it might be just about really committing to something and, and doing it right. So that seems to be of importance as well. And then I'm also asking myself whether this is just the tip of the iceberg of how decision-making might potentially look like in the future, because maybe that's only the beginning of another way of working together, of doing things together. So what you just proposed is really interesting, like this very random thing. So if I compare your proposal to what we've seen from how Stocksy is organizing their decision-making process, we see two really very distinct systems next to each other. But I think it's a brilliant starting point if we take it from there and really invite everyone of you in the audience, because I guess everybody has a certain knowledge and experience in distributed governance. I want to invite you to comment on what you've heard and whatever it is that you would like to ask, to clarify, or to share. Now is the moment, so please. Okay, first you. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. So what you're talking about is in the democracy reform political world is called sortition. And I definitely disagree with it as a way to pick leaders, but I really like what you're saying about like picking like accountability boards or having like part of the board be that. And I'm curious whether the democracy reform worlds where I come from, like I said, but like ranked choice voting just passed in New York and these other kinds of things where people, are there other ways to vote? Like do you guys just have plain plurality voting in that system, or are there other kinds of systems of voting that move beyond just systems of decision-making, but systems of voting so that the decision-making voting is more representative? Has anyone explored like ranked choice voting or other things in your?
There's something parallel to that, which is liquid democracy.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting because you don't choose a representative for everything, and it can have an opinion on health, agriculture, or finance. So if the question is about finance, you might delegate your vote on him, and if it's about health, you may delegate on her.
Yeah.
That's another way to go around.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Like I confess I'd only come across it here.
But I think it's very wise, because when you choose a representative, you choose because you trust, but he or she may not be an expert on everything, or you may not agree on everything. So for every subject or for every decision, you can choose your representative for that decision, and it works in cascade For example, if I delegate on you and you delegate on her, on him, my vote goes to him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a neat concept for ensuring the best outcomes. So I mean, it's something we have not done.
Gentleman here and then over there.
I come from a Quaker background, and I found that the consensus notion is disturbing, doesn't work very well, lots of blocking and so forth, and you get to this mediocrity. But Quakers are able to provide a culture in which the decision-making process is taken a little differently as a serious thing that you're doing. And your relationship to the other people in the process is transformed in that way. You don't block just because you block, and you don't assume that you should be voting on the basis of some power struggle in the organization. So they call that coming to unity, and I'm wondering if anybody tries anything like that when you're doing these consensus things. And the other thing that's linked to that in my mind is the model proposed by, or intended in the Occupy movement, where you have nodes that are linked to other nodes, the anarchist model, essentially, so that we're making a decision and I'm on this committee over here, and I know what these guys want, and so when we sit, I can bring that context in, but I'm not officially a representative. I'm transmitting information so that a small worlds network has emergent properties that aren't going to come up when you're just trying to make random appointments. Anything that radical anybody's run into?
Well, I'll just say that when I say governance, music as a distributed governance context, that's what I'm talking about. People find their music that moves them, and they find the communities form themselves around the content. And so, and this is more or less aspirational because I'm saying there is a music ecosystem there, and then how do we construct support for that? Because obviously, what I want is for artists to lead the world, particularly music artists, because of how they manage time and attention and connect people. And I think that if we are going to make it through the next 10 years to 20 years, having that unmediated capacity of organic culture coming from individual sites of culture in individual persons is a technique. So musicians for thousands of years have gotten together in groups, and groups have formed around them. So if I can make that work, that's how we do that.
Ali, I've seen that you wanted to say something. I have a clarifying question. I'm really interested in how coming to unity works. Are you able to describe in a few words how this process looks like so that everyone gets the idea?
The essential feature is that everybody making the decision in a friend's business meeting is sort of mentally, emotionally, whatever, standing in a place or sitting in a place that respects a sort of fundamental importance of everybody else that's there. There's this baseline acceptance of one another in that situation. And the discussion is explicitly, normatively, you're not supposed to be putting your own ego into it. You're supposed to be allowing the best of the group to emerge in that. And when people are able to commit to that kind of a process, you don't get consensus, you get a better decision. Often there are disagreements, sometimes apparently irreconcilable. And in a friend's business meeting, then the meeting sits with that. So you deal with that uncertainty, that emotionality of that sense of, and you let something come up. And what happens is you get a better decision all the time. Somebody will come up with something no one thought of. It's the obvious right thing, or it happens constantly.
It sounds a little bit like what I know as council.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So that's
it might have relationships to some of the Native American practices that happen. You might use a talking stick for or something like that.
Just for clarification, is everyone clear about what consensus and consent means, or are there questions around that? Oh, it's clear.
I have a clarifying question, I guess,
Yeah.
because you're saying you've come up with a decision better than consensus. But how do you mean? My understanding of consensus is that everyone consents to the decision being made. So what would be a better decision than everyone consenting?
The problem with consensus as a sort of a secular version of it, which came up in Occupy a lot of times, was that some idiot is blocking the decision, standing in the way, as the phrase we follow. And they aren't really emotionally, morally, intellectually committed to the group's success in doing this. So when you're able to step back from that kind of interference with the group process, and then you let the group have the time and the space and the orientation to allow a better solution to come up. Sometimes in Friends meeting it doesn't, and you just say, oh, we'll have to lay this over to the next meeting. You accept the need for process, for timetable, so you don't let the group doesn't let itself get bullied into the urgency of the situation as possible. But underlying it for Quakers, there's this sort of relationship to a spiritual dimension of it, which is where they're coming from. And not everybody can do that, or wants to do that, or has any interest in it. So that part of it is triggered. But
Thanks for.
I had a follow-up.
Yeah, there's another question.
Do you think that that's replicated in a limited way online, or does it always require presence? And then the second one is, have you seen that work in a more diverse space where you don't have everyone on the same, same level spiritually, but maybe they're just from different faiths? And how would that work together? Or at least, how do you do it? Or no faith. Right.
Or what?
Or no faith.
No faith. Right. I just didn't hear you.
The answer, short answer is no. I haven't seen efforts to try to extend that online.
But maybe because we have Javier. Maybe you have something to add.
Very short. There's a very interesting experience in Taiwan. The digital minister, she's put up a collective participative decision process, and it works in a way where you can either make a proposal, you can vote a proposal, but you can't go against. Either you vote in favor or you make another proposal. And that makes conversation different, because you cannot oppose. And the interesting thing about it is that once that happens, what they look at is the social graph behind the proposals. And the quality of decision is made, is taken as whether the social graph, people from different positions, social demographic or whatever, that were opposing, by creating new proposals, get to converge, which is, I would say, similar in spirit to what you were saying.
Very interesting. Ali, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I was to take on the area of like governance issue and democracy to mention. 15 years ago, I did my master's in Birmingham on governance and development management. So the first paper I discussed with my scholar was, and I wrote on it, was Can Demos Kratos? So it comes from Greek words, demos and kratos. So demos is reflecting like people, so people management, but demos is also used in Greek for poor. So can poor, ordinary citizens. So taking this in account and putting also data, knowledge, information, and manipulation. So we have facts and we have human beings and we have hierarchies. So at that time it was poor people, like you don't have power. So you are poor, so you don't have power, you are not accepted as a citizen. So then it turned and demos started kratos. And today, knowledge, information, so we still have poorest in terms of knowledge, information, data. So governance in terms of this multi-layer knowledge. So you have knowledge, but you cannot produce information. You need data. So in order to process data, so you increase, if you can create governance among these, so you then produce kind of a quality, so levels of quality, which determines the quality of decision making, quality of interaction, then quality of what you reflect in your community. If it's smaller, the reflections, human to human interaction is different. If it's crowd, the results diversify. So how you manage diversified, crystallized, different data's information. So that's why now code is low. And now we are discussing blockchains like crowd, decentralized systems. So I think in terms of like governance, like consensus, like manipulation, we also need to discuss this structure, because with an idea also, the root of information data is like idea. So we came up with ideas, great, I mean, cooperatives ideas, then it's growing. And then we try to find solutions in terms of how we govern it. But the root, I can go back, is again the demos kratos metaphor. The root of the issues, I mean, we, like Facebook, I mean, he created something and it went out a giant, I mean, monster. So I don't want to be my platform to be monster. So if we can do governance of monsters, we are creating. So it's, I think, related.
I think there is a comment
so
related to that.
I want to provoke
Yeah, very good. Keep on provoking.
Okay.
Please.
It's not an answer to your provocation. It was more a very practical question that I have in mind. We know that like there is some academic research being performed on this. Like cooperatives go digital, but what we mean here is mainly they digitalize their services, they digitalize their economic part. And what was noted is that even platform co-ops don't go digital for their governance part. And that's the question I was like entering this room, like we are all somewhat related to the cooperative movement. Any clue about why we don't digitalize the governance? Is it because we don't have the appropriate tool? Is it because we don't see the added value? Another question, like a subsequent question I have is that usually we hear, as cooperative entrepreneur, I know it, like we know that democracy is very time-consuming, resource-consuming. So there is also a need, I guess, for more efficiency. And usually when we go to digital, we try to go more efficient. So why why we don't make this match for governance? Why digital tools are never why we don't use the digital opportunity for improving governance, or why is it so maintained or marginalized in the current situation?
Great question. I would also like to maybe encourage you, Novita, to let us know about what's the situation in Indonesia. I'm really interested in that. And everyone else who feels like answering, please pick it up. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in Indonesia, for example, we haven't tried the online voting, the online one in our cooperative. So we have like a consumer cooperative which has almost 2,000 members, and we do not use the online system since we are still like we were still debating about the trust, about how we can't make the representative represent us. So that's also the issue in Indonesia. We're still trying to how to accelerate our cooperative, but we still involve many people to also to make decisions. We're still discussing. And it's also the issue in Indonesia too.
We discuss in Germany as well. Very similar.
Yeah.
Please, Francesca.
No, try to answer to your question, Lee. Honestly, I don't think the point is the digitalization or not of the governance, but what Ali was saying, that means the knowledge, because, for example, our experiences in Doc Servizi is go from a very different range of communities, and people are engaged in different ways. And for example, musicians are the less interested in participate because they are interested in music, in arts, in performing. And they are not so engaged when you say, do you want to vote? We inform them about rights, about stuff. They don't. See. But
Yes.
you agree. Oh. But there are other members that are more interested, like the IT people, like the creative people. They are more interested in participating and create networks and work with others. While a musician is very ambitious and you can't say they fight against each other in some way, because if you play in a live clubs, the other one is not playing, and you can't just say, okay, I want him or and have the same musician do different things. I mean, it's very competitive field, but creatives are less competitive, and they are more interested in participating in the governance. So the point with our experience is not if you digitalize it or not, because a musician, even if he could vote using every tool, it will never do it in general. But creative people, maybe yes. This is for sure. It depends also on the profession, in our experience.
Before we move on with questions, is there any of you who feels like picking up that question? Because it seems to be a really interesting one.
Well, I just want to say it's because it is hard, like you said, you nailed it, and I think you have to find where you're experiencing the pain and fix it, because the dark side of the story that I was telling you up there about why another reason we moved to that model is that when I came on as VP Ops, I was asked to go back and revisit our resolutions. And we had, I hate to admit this, we had like 10, 20, 30 that were just sitting there that had never been dealt with. Like they've been voted through on these AGMs, and they're just sitting in a dark corner. And in fairness to Stocksy and everybody there before me, it's because their main focus was on making money for our contributors. Like the contributors are our primary concern, and we want to give them the best opportunity to make a living or find success in their art and their craft. And so we had to go and clean all those out, and I had to sit down with all the contributors who had submitted that resolution and had been voted on and talk through it. And it was like, oh my God, I never want to do this again. And it's not just because of the embarrassment of having to, hey, I know this got voted through 6 months ago or a year ago, but we haven't done anything. It's just realizing that that's not really being a co-op. Like we're not living up to what we said we were going to live up to. So it caused enough pain that we said, okay, we got to do it where it's just like there's no management touching it, nothing. Like a member can submit it, and it's right there on the website. Everybody can see, and it forces it to be dealt with. So you just have to find the reason for it. But I haven't really answered your question, but it's because I'm with you. The reason why it doesn't happen so much is because everybody's got the business side they've got to attend to. Because if you don't have the business, it doesn't matter what your governance structure is. You're not going to be doing any good for your members. So it's a dance.
Very interesting point. So you were first, and then you, please.
Yeah, thanks so much for all coming. You have like 10 days to travel one way for you all coming here. So thanks for that. My context is working with lots of artists. We have about 6,000 professionally trained musicians on our platform, and I guess the question we're directed towards Francesca and Rich for that reason. Thinking about how collective bargaining has gone, reaching out, not just trying to like get organized within, but how it's responded to other governing bodies when it comes to, I'm in the States, so questions of health care, questions of pension, how has that discourse gone and how has it developed into action? It's more curious than anything, but just that.
Also, if I might add, also people in the audience that feel like they want to answer that question, please do, right? This is open for everyone.
We have a very good experience in bargaining. It started with a sad story, actually, because in 2011, a stage technician died under a stage that wasn't well built. And so the public opinion awoke, And unluckily, we had to use this tragic situation to say, okay, we need a law, we need a bargaining agreement for musicians, technicians of the creative and cultural field. And so we started the work in 2011, and in 2014 we obtained the first CBA in the field in Italy. But it was very tough because, not in every country the relationship among cooperatives and unions is easy. Mm-hmm. Because in theory we have the same purposes, that is protect workers and support them to obtain better working conditions. But in practice, sometimes cooperatives have two problems. First of all, not everybody understands that we are our employers, and they think that we are the cooperatives like the boss of the workers. They don't understand always how does it work. And second issue is that cooperatives not always give better work opportunities on the market, because there are also fake cooperatives. In Italy, it's a very common problem. But after years of working, we obtained the first CBA, and the unions understood that it's very important to cooperate, and this is an example of alliance between the unions and cooperation. And we also obtained a decree for the safety of technicians, because before this work, technicians were the safety technicians was organized like with the same law to build like a building like this, And maybe for build something like this you need 2, 3, 4 years, and to build a stage you need 3 hours, and so it changed a lot. And now we are discussing a new bargaining agreement to cover all the creative and cultural industries, because we started with musicians, now we cover all the field. And so we are also trying to bargain all the workers of platforms. So if we succeed, and Chiara is the one who's working on that, so if you have questions, she is the one. She's the consultant that is writing the
Chiara, please raise your hand. So, very good, okay.
And she suggested to introduce also platform workers, and this is it will be a great success, because it will be the first contract in Italy that is going to define fares, poses, and etc., even for platform workers. And it will be a cooperative one. But this is a difficult work. If you want, later we can discuss deeply, because I don't know if everybody can be interested deeply in this topic.
Great, so please meet Chiara and Francesca after the session. You had a question, please.
Yeah, I actually would like to build on the question before, because I come from Brazil. I work for a credit union system that has more than 4 million members, and we are studying how to improve democratic organization. And now we are not a platform co-op, but we have digital association, so you can, with your phone, be a member of the credit union in 10 minutes. And these people that's coming online, physically we have 10% participation, so 400,000 people vote, but digitally is 0.48%. So it's really scary that the cooperative movement on the digital is going less and less participative. This is our worry. So we were looking into platform co-ops to see models, and the only one I saw that's improving it's Stocksy. And you were like not so satisfied. But this is my thing also, that we are improving on the business part and on digitalization, even in platform co-ops, but not discussing enough democratic strategies. For example, we just talk about assemblies, general annual meetings. I was wondering to know if you have other practices of democratic, for example, co-designing, asking your members every year about a lot of things, like not just once a year, or transparency characteristics, like every month giving them data from the business part of the co-op. Like how can our discussion forums, I know that Stocksy now has a way of selecting 10 topics for the annual meeting. So I saw it
That was a long time ago.
A long time. Okay,
Yeah.
so what can you do besides annual meeting?
Well, here's the interesting goal I have as current leader of Stocksy is that in theory, if we do our job, we being the management team and all the employees that are there to help our contributors, if we do our job perfectly, which we never will, but if we did, there should never be a resolution submitted. Like that's what you aspire to. Like you're never going to get there because you have the bell curve of people, and you'll have some people very dissatisfied no matter what you do. But in theory, there should be no resolution submitted ever, and you do that by being transparent. And so we do like every month we do a monthly report on, hey, what did we get done last month, and that includes financial numbers and lists of all the development work that the team has done, marketing, what they've done, and we can never you can spend so much time reporting that you can end up neglecting the business. So there's again a balance you have to strike, and you may not be able to get it perfect, but I have seen, like since I came on there, it's not just my doing, it's we collectively realized that we should be communicating with the membership more than just having a forum and letting them talk. And so I've seen the amount of resolutions and whatnot kind of reduce. And so you tend to get more high quality ones, because if people are frustrated because they don't know what's going on, then they make up their own story. So to your point, you need to, more important than even the resolution side, you need to be talking to your members and letting them know what is going on as best you can. I mean, obviously, privacy laws and whatnot can inhibit being completely transparent, but the more transparent you can be, the better thing.
Very quickly, before you can ask your question, I want to propose one thing. So this session was planned from 3 to 5. What I would like to propose is that we might take 2 more questions maybe, and then I suggest we leave a little bit of time so that people can join other people here in the room individually, because I guess you all have an idea of who is interested in what, and I think it would be nice to allow for some time for individual conversations. Would that be okay for everyone? Yeah? Okay, let's do that. So we have you and you.
Well, I want to kind of continue this conversation. One idea I've been at, and I'm finishing something, so I don't have any proof that this works, but I'm hopeful, is gamification. And I think that there's something, I think a lot of times that gets thrown around in this very like boring, like just give people points for doing stuff, and then, but if it's something that they don't want to do, and so you have to think a little harder than just like give badges and points. But I think that one can one, incentivize participation, and more, especially if you design it to be more meaningful participation, and especially doing in-person participation. I don't know if you guys have any physical locations, but sort of.
You have more than 1,100.
So I think using those as spaces for your members to be co-working spaces, or have some sort of benefit for using them, or
like yours, but it's just like
and sort of incentivizing people to go there, maybe through incentives from like a banking perspective, or from a community perspective, and that's something that like I think is sort of like, how can we use platforms to get people to show up in the real world, and that's what I talk about. I'm making an augmented reality civic engagement game, so it's sort of like mine is entirely that. So, but I think there's pieces of it that I'm thinking about that I think could be helpful with other types of platforms. I think it's not easy. It's also a hard problem to make an actually good game and to make an actually meaningful game. But I think it's something to be thinking about ways to increase engagement.
I'd like to make a comment, and I have the feeling that we are all trying to put analogic representation and voting into digital, into platforms. And I'm reading this book, Everyone Lies, which is a book about someone who's doing social research based on Google Trends. And when you search in Google, you're honest, no? You're not faking something, or no? And it's very interesting because you really know what people want. So I don't know whether we should change our. I'm just exploring it, but because I see we are all talking representation and voting, and we're trying to move that to the crowd, and we're trying to move that to a digital thing. But maybe digital allows us to gather information in a different way. Maybe digital allows us to observe needs before people are aware they have their needs. Maybe digital allows us to observe contrary opinions or contrary groups in another way. And I don't know whether, I know it's not today or not the space, but whether we should allow us to reframe what distributed governance is in this era where we have information and not only representation and voting.
Very interesting point. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I can attach to this because I think that there are some. It's interesting because it's the data that you are mentioning, and I'm not a techno solutionist, and I don't think that data can explain everything and so on. But I think that sometimes you have a problem of asymmetry of information. And it is interesting, the Stocksy model, because somehow you have a board that can even, some stuff can, if I understood well, you can just stop something because it's something that could be too dangerous for maybe business, for example, or not. Or this is
yes, but you could argue that's actually counter to co-op model. Like technically speaking, the board can cut off something that's coming through from the members. But at the moment anyway, that is there, and we've seen a couple instances where something could have been voted through, but like we had somebody who wanted put in a resolution that we should work with this company. The only reason they were doing it is because it's their company. There was a complete conflict of interest that I guess you could take it to its extension and say if they voted it through, we would have still had to figure it out, but the board squashed it. Or if there's something that we see on the business side that is vital and necessary that the members may not see because these are we're a producer co-op. We need the ability, but the system forces us to explain it. Like the vote gets displayed that this is how the board voted, and the board is going to have to explain it in the forum. So there's still
and there is accountability because in the end they might not vote you anymore. So but you have maybe there are some decisions that you say, okay, I can envision what will happen if we take this decision instead of this one, and I can say maybe I have more information and might have more competencies to say, okay, no, these things cannot go through a resolution vote, but after 6 months, maybe if what you are saying didn't actually happen, probably they will just vote for another board, so there is accountability. So I think I really like what you do and all the governance that you have.
It's rare that they ever say no. They've either greenlit it or they put it through the resolution vote, because it's even on some of the ones where the board probably realizes, hey, we should just do this. There's times where they want it to just, hey, this is democracy here, so let's let it go to a formal vote, and so we do.
I want to add something that is something that I don't know if some of your organization do, but it's like evaluating the knowledge of those that are voting somehow, or if you agree that it could be something interesting like that. You have to have a certain overview or a certain degree of participation instead of being able to vote something, and how is this threshold, because you might not know certain type of numbers that are already existing, or I don't know if, because this is a tricky question, because there are some people that say people that can vote at a regular election should have enough knowledge and is a little bit risk to be elitarian. So I don't know what you think about it.
Can I make a suggestion? I would like to take this last question along with all the other open questions in the room, and I like to give every speaker the opportunity of some closing words, and you're of course invited to take up on that for those who feel it's interesting. And those who do not feel like saying a closing word, it's also okay, but please just want to provide the opportunity for a last round of responses and comments.
Okay.
And also related to this, I mean, giving an example from needs map, we have in 3 years more than 1 million entries in data on the map, different geographies, and asking for some needs. Sometimes it's telescope, sometimes it's a carpet for a praying space, some bright shirts. I mean, it's diversified. So it all needs decisions. So they are all it's filtered, it's verified. So there's a mechanism. So decision making and governance mechanism is everywhere in our system. So it's in the pool. You see, if you go to map, there are 12,000 needs and 2,000 people who wants to give something. So, and it's open. So what we try to do is interaction. I mean, so governance needs interaction. Governance needs decision. Someone is taking decisions. So decision making is in all parts of our lives. So try to control it and manage it is not possible in this era. That's why, I mean, just last word, I mean, to your point, I think we need creating more automatic mechanisms, so which are not easy, which are not open to, new discussions, but I think it will be the era that we will go. Not robots, but, we will have more mechanisms to, decide on behalf of us. So it's not manageable, because otherwise, Cambridge Analytica, manipulations, we are open. Once you open everything, so it's not possible you catch every data in academics, everything. You cannot read everything. So we need to create ethical decision-making algorithms. So I think as a collective, this is our responsibility that we should all, discuss.
But in our point of view, I think the point is always to think before about the level of participation that we can have in function of the person that we have, that we want to participate in the decision making. Because considering that we have to participate already in many decision making processes, not everybody is interested, I think, in participating in every decision making process. So that's the reason why, for example, the solution that we found is to extract information from our members to try to solve their problems. And after 30 years, is working. So this is a bit maybe a practitioner way, not so techy, but still.
It works.
Yes, because what we realized that not everybody wants to participate, not everybody wants to be involved. But then, of course, if someone wants to be involved, the question is find a way to let him participate in the governance. And I have to admit, in our cooperatives, they vote, but the assembly is there are 50 people each at annual assembly. So the assembly, I don't think it's the solution. We have to find other ways, technological or extract information, data. I think this is a bit the direction.
Yeah. Sorry. I'd just say, make sure you, sort of along the lines of what we were talking about balancing, make sure obviously you've got to build something that supports your governance and your bylaws and gets to the core of the framework of your co-op, but don't lose sight of the business needs and contemplate whatever system you're putting in place, is it supporting the business, if that makes sense. I think we can. It's a bit trite for me to say this, and I really don't know for sure, but I suspect we can all get so in love with the idea of governance, you can take it too far in a sense, where you're actually hampering the business. And you could argue I'm splitting hairs here because Stocksy sort of dances with 1 foot in each world right now, where we still need to be nimble and fast and have the management team be able to make decisions that we don't include the members on. And what we do is try to be transparent about what the decisions we've made and what's happened there, but we have to be able to do that fast. But we also want the members to have a say. So we've provided the capacity for them, if they're really pissed off about something, they can submit any resolution they want. And for really fundamental ones, like when we used to have a cap on the number of contributors that we could have, and we had to put a vote through to remove it. And something like that where it changes our underlying governing documents, of course they have to vote on it. So it's just make sure you strike that balance as best you can. Easy to say.
So my reflection on your question and also the earlier threads about apathy is that I found over time that I don't think it's helpful to correlate like apathy with a lack of interest. And I think when the main options available are attending an AGM and maybe even voting online, most people aren't going to take the time because they just don't care and they don't feel that that process has any real influence. So I wouldn't say that everybody wants to be involved in everything, but most people, especially in a co-op, want decisions to be made well by people who are informed and at least take the time to understand their perspective. So when it comes to the idea of efficiency, I actually think, I agree with Sam that using sortition to select leaders is very radical. But I think using deliberative mini-public, so basically any group of people, for example, when you do the first round of looking at whether something should go up to a first round vote, why does that have to be done by an elected board? I think that's a perfect opportunity to involve, for example, a randomly selected jury of members to take on that role. So they have some kind of charge, their work has meaning, and the decisions actually do represent everyday people. So I think that can be one way of making people more informed, more interested in developing themselves and educated about it, and also help address some of these issues.
I want to say that our co-op is a multi-stakeholder, and this partly answers your question. So we have artists, we have active listeners, and I'd say that our community is directed toward active listeners. My business model, part of my business model that I've instituted this summer and that we'll be rolling out has to do with a subscription-based model that's by choice. One can listen to music without subscribing. We actually have a pay-per-play, so you tank up, you put €5 in the tank, and then you can go around and listen to the music. And the first time you listen is very inexpensive, so it's possible to listen to hundreds of tracks before you need to put your tank up. But I'm going after the people who believe in the cooperative social context so that they're willing to contribute every month, and then you can trade the credits off to other people, give them as gifts, etc. So active listeners, artists, software developers, curators. Curators are coming into the archive that's been contributed by artists and telling stories about it. And my theory that I'm also looking to implement is that you can tell stories, you can have genre stories or artist stories, or just your reputation is high in the community, so people will subscribe to the storytelling aspect. And then also there's a management layer. But the point is, where I'm trying to build this would be the artists within, the artists as a bargaining unit can come to the software developers and ask for the features that make sense. The curators can do that. So that's how we would solve that problem. Again, our trajectory is we had a technology partner that steered us on a course in early 2018 and it didn't work out. So I'm like kind of gathering people around, and the first thing I did was institute a open call. Anybody that was curious about the future of the program, and any of you in this room at any time, it's 9 a.m. Pacific, it's 6 p.m. Berlin on Wednesday mornings or Wednesday evening. Anyone can join the call and either ask the questions about what's happening with the co-op or tell their story about what they did since the last call, the work that's going on. There are a couple of control rules, but that's how at least I'm dealing with the accountability issues at this time.
I found the whole debate fascinating, and I get this idea that we're trying to translate cyclical representation and voting on a different world, and I suspect that we want governance for action, and we want distributed governance, we maybe want distributed action, and we may support that on observation and data and conversations, and kind of think of swarm intelligence or a plant intelligence where power is at the end, at the extreme, and not centralized. I think there's a whole new thing to explore. I have the feeling that we are transmuting what we learn in analogic to this new movement. But I don't have the solution. I just have the intuition for that.
Yeah, the situation is a bit complex in Indonesia, since like one of our technology-based worker cooperative is basically becak drivers, like tuk-tuk drivers, and also the founders are master graduated. So there are a very huge gap here in the platform, since maybe the becak drivers, they cannot even read. Sometimes they cannot even calculate. They cannot do that. And the founders, they have like they have a very much knowledge. So that's the gap that we face in Indonesia now in our platforms. Domestic workers, and then the traditional becak drivers, and then the traditional market sellers. Sometimes they cannot even read, they cannot even calculate. So how can we bridge this gap? We are searching for the tool. And I'm thinking of how about if we make like a cluster, like clustering the co-ops. So maybe based on the sector, based on the members, based on their backgrounds. So we can't find better solutions, because we cannot find like one solution for all. We make a clustering. Then when your cooperative, for example, you belongs to this cluster. So what governance, what distributed governance that maybe sits on you? I'm thinking about that clustering system. Okay.
Wow, thank you all so much. That was indeed a really fascinating debate. And also thanks a lot for all your contribution from the audience. We now have it's basically 40 minutes left before the next session starts. I think all the other following sessions start by 5:30, so there's enough time for you to talk to people you want to talk to, have a coffee, get some fresh air, and see you later. Thank you.
Thank you.